So, ladies and gents, by now most of you would have watched Loki episode 5. What a fantastic episode it was, but for those that haven't, there will be some spoilers in this video, so please do click off if you don't want any. Now, first things first, we will be discussing classic Loki, because what a dude Richard E. Grant was in the role. What a fantastic characterization. I think he actually, by comparison to Tom Hiddleston, and I guess like an evolution of Tom Hiddleston's portrayal as Loki, I think Richard E. Grant did a stand-up job. Actually did a stand-up job in the role. Now, he tweeted this out with a hilarious behind-the-scenes shot, and mainly just what he said, channeling Kermit. That in comparison, in direct comparison to the images there, I didn't think that he looked like Kermit initially. It's not what screams to me when I was looking at classic Loki, but now he said it, I'm like, God damn, that does look an awful lot like Kermit the Frog. And it is a shame that we won't be getting Richard E. Grant back as classic Loki. That's very, very unlikely anyway, given obviously certain events that took place within the episode. But there was some interesting backstory revealed in terms of how they wrote him, why they wrote him that way, and I guess the sort of direction that they went with it. Now, this is all actually courtesy of the head writer. Now, he says, calling it a thought experiment. Head writer Michael Waldron told Marvel.com, so this is all courtesy of Marvel.com, the backstory for classic Loki came from the question of, what if Loki did in fact survive the events of Avengers Infinity War? And I thought, well, what if that did happen, continues Waldron. And if it did, in fact, how could he have aged up? How could he have lived out his years in a way that the TVA would never come find him? Because, of course, you know, that was his Nexus event. He is supposed to die there. But anyway, from there, classic Loki's backstory was born, and it serves as a reminder to Loki that he, too, can change his ways. Is not relegated to the one role on the sacred timeline, and can form actual relationships with people. It was that tragic thing where he finally realises, I'm meant to be alone, Waldron adds. It's just so sad. There's a real lesson there for our Loki in that he's going to reject that notion that this tiger can change his stripes, and he refuses to be alone. Loki wants to do the right thing. He wants to see if he can have real companionship in his life, which I guess, if this isn't a bait and switch, it looks like Loki won't actually betray Sylvie in the final episode, because that's that is one of the thoughts and theories floating around there, is that, you know, he will just go and betray her towards the end, thus, you know, being full-blown Loki again. But I also thought Richard E. Grant's character was interesting because, you know, he wasn't the sole one there that led to the overall change. It was Richard E. Grant's classic Loki, but then also Mobius, played by Owen Wilson. His characterization was really, really important, and some of the dialogue that he had with classic Loki was really important. His words, you know, about going and destroying the TVA, I'm going to burn it all down. And classic Loki interjecting and going, what, just like that, you're going to change? And Mobius' response is, it's never too late to change. And that was the only reason classic Loki then came back to help save the day. And thus, obviously, I guess, committing himself to suicide. But isn't it interesting that that was what led to it? And then this is obviously them saying, well, you know, he is still classic Loki, and that's the reason why. But again, to me, I look at it as just a perspective of, well, I don't think we're going to get our Loki betraying Sylvie in the end, which I think is good. It'd be good to have him actually redeem himself for a change. Now, of course, one of the other big reveals was President Loki, which Tom Hiddleston has dropped in and spoken about. He says it was completely surreal and an absolute delight. Now, this is playing multiple Lokis. I've been living with playing Loki for a long time and have become used to all his different characteristics. To suddenly be surrounded by incarnations and embodiments of those characters, those moments with Richard, Diobia, and Jack all together was so much fun. They're all brilliant, and that's obviously just the versions which weren't him. Shame he didn't mention alligator Loki, though. Shame. What a shame. Now, this one, I need to raise my head up a little bit. This one was very interesting. This is addressing very specifically the President Loki situation. Now, he says, in that moment, the character who looks least like Loki is me, Hiddleston would continue and said, it was like being at some sort of surrealist party. It was brilliant. I just enjoyed it so much. And my character, Loki, is completely out of his depth and a fish out of water. And it was just an enjoyable thing to play. Now, Loki, obviously, well, Tom Hiddleston plays President Loki very specifically. And it's interesting what they say about President Loki. So, again, that was quite surreal, Hiddleston says. President Loki is almost the worst of the bad bunch. It certainly felt this way. He's the least vulnerable, the most autocratic, and terrifyingly ambitious character who seems to have no empathy or care for anyone else. Playing both roles apparently required a few quick changes on those days, because he'd obviously be jumping to and from each character, and doing them both in the same scene was slightly mad, but in an enjoyable way, and fun too, because it was about leaning into Loki as a pure villain, or his capacity to be a pure villain. So there you go, ladies and gents. The whole classic Loki reveals, I think, are just fantastic. And I genuinely, I think Richard E. Grant did a really good job of being Loki. I think he did great. I think he did a really, really good job. He has similar sort of mannerisms to a certain degree than Tom Hiddleston, or at the very least, comparable. Comparable. He's very comparable to Tom Hiddleston. And what better actor to play an aged up Tom Hiddleston, I guess. And I'm really glad they didn't go the route of aging Tom Hiddleston up. That would have just, that would have been bad. But all of this is fantastic. Some of the reveals here are really, really good. They do go some way to, I guess, hopefully it's not a bait and switch, but they do go some way to telling us that our Loki is on the path of redemption. And I think that's cool. I think that's interesting. I have absolutely fallen out of love with Marvel come Endgame. But this is what's getting me back into it. So please, Marvel, do not fudge this up. There's a lot of other people with a similar mindset to me. So don't fudge it up, because you'll lose people permanently. But anyway, let me know what you guys think down below. Did you like this episode or not? Did you watch my review? Please do let me know. Anyway, guys, thanks so much. Take care.